A young boy fishes quietly by the edge of a river until a wizard suddenly appears, asking if the boy would like to learn magic. Even though he's confused, he doesn't miss the chance to practice that art, demanding focus from his pupil. The sorcerer Elders tells him that one day, the boy will have companions who will be in danger, and that to save his precious friends, he'll have to make use of magic. Magic, Elders explains, is nothing more than holding the air you breathe and turning it into something special. When the boy opens his eyes and releases the spell he had been storing, a wide smile spreads across his face as he sees that he hit the target in front of him. Even though it had been a difficult day of training, the student was happy for his success. According to Elders, it usually takes a normal person a whole month to master that spell, and the boy had done really well. But that was enough for today. Impatient, the child pouts, wanting to learn another spell, but as his master teaches, the one who rushes eats raw food. And speaking of raw food, it might be a good idea to catch a fish before the sun goes down for good. The plan was to relax the boy's mind, but he wouldn't stop complaining that he wanted to keep training. So the teacher tells him that Alec has a natural talent for becoming a mage, and that even if he didn't have an instructor, he would surely become a great sorcerer someday. Therefore, the boy must let time flow at its own pace, just like the water flows in this river where they're fishing now. Since that's the case, Alec asks why the man is teaching him, but before he can answer, the master's bait is bitten by a fish. Quickly, both of them focus on the catch. Since Elders has no idea what to do next, the boy laughs at the adult for being so good with spells, but so clueless when it comes to fishing. After catching the fish with some effort and falling on their backs, the two burst into laughter. The next day, Alec struggles to learn a magic formula from a book. The teacher assures him that everything becomes easier once you understand the pattern behind the formula. As the hours pass, the two keep studying together and make progress as they use their time well. At one point during the day, it begins to snow, and the two start a snowball fight. Alec loved this life beside his master. However, one day, Elders revealed to the boy that he was leaving the capital. He advised him that if he ever got the chance to become a court mage, he should choose not to. Still not understanding why, Alec asks once again why his teacher decided to teach him magic. The wizard explains that the boy's mother had once done him a great favor when she was alive. Many years later, at the Royal Academy of Magic, Alec found in the library that his former instructor was indeed an incredible man, for he had graduated as the Academy's most promising student. However, after becoming a court mage, Elders was banished, and Alec realized that this was why he always had that sad look in his eyes. Because of that, Alec decided to do something to change how things worked, promising to reform the court to repay all the kindness Elders had shown him. But to do that, the young man would first need to become a court mage himself. Despite the promise he made that day, fate proved to be far crueler than Alec Egret could have imagined. Some time later, now one of the court's magicians, he was dismissed from his group by Prince Regulus of the Kingdom of Galdana. Lenny and Ix, the other members of the team, laughed as the mage was expelled. After all, his job was to protect His Highness Regulus, but according to the prince, he hadn't been doing a good job. In every mission, the prince charged forward with his sword, while Lenny used her fire spells from behind and Ix tanked enemy attacks. In other words, all that was left for Alec to do was cast defense and enchantment spells, pathetic for someone who called himself a court mage. Alec tried to explain his point of view, but his teammates cut him off, accusing him of being a coward who always chickened out when they wanted to descend to the more dangerous dungeon levels. Lenny, who had always stayed quiet because the prince had placed Alec in the group, finally spoke her mind, saying she refused to conquer any labyrinth with a worthless loser like him. Regulus acknowledged that Alec had stood out at the Magic Academy, which earned him the rank of court mage. However, all the man showed now was that he was a burden on those who truly fought to win. On top of that, the prince took Alec's dagger and reminded him that commoners weren't allowed to carry weapons. Alec explained that they might need it on the next level, but the monarch made it clear that no one could act on their own in his group, and that's exactly why he always hated having commoners on his team. Finally, Regulus tore the court mage robe off Alec, saying he didn't deserve it. As a result, the expelled sorcerer fell into an immediate state of emotional shock, unable to react as his former teammates walked away. Even so, the boy didn't give up and kept studying and improving. Learning about the prince's weaknesses, especially that he didn't know how to use magic, Alec wanted to make up for what His Highness lacked so that he could somehow serve his former group. In the end, he still held on to the hope that he could return and give his best again. However, the doors were beginning to close for the mage, literally speaking. For example, when he tried to enter the capital the next day, the guards stopped him, since he had lost his court mage title and was now just an ordinary commoner. Lenny appeared in the middle of the confusion to reinforce the guards' point, making sure to repeat that commoners couldn't enter the capital. She also mentioned she'd heard Alec had broken the royal dungeon record when he was at the academy from level 37 to 60, but she still thought he was nothing more than a braggart. Seeing that the sorceress was leaving, Alec asked that she at least deliver a letter to King Furcus, since he had joined Regulus's team under His Majesty's orders. Having said that, Lenny took the letter from her former companion and tore it into pieces right in front of him. Then she closed the capital gate, and with that, ended the young man's hope of entering. Reflecting on his journey up to that point, standing there in the middle of the street, Alec concluded that he had done his best during those 4 years as a court mage. In any case, he asked Eldaz for forgiveness, for in the end, he hadn't been able to change the imperial court. In the middle of this reflection, the sorcerer was approached by an old friend who gave him a warm, affectionate hug. The girl smiled brightly upon seeing her great companion again, while Alec realized it was Yorha. The two wasted no time catching up after 4 long years apart. Alec told his sad story to his friend, who understood why he seemed so depressed. Regarding that, the girl confessed that she couldn't stand the kingdom of Galdana, since that old tradition of nobles and commoners was complete nonsense. Now, Yorha didn't know if she should say this, but honestly, she was happy that he had left the court. After all, as she had told him 4 years ago, one day she would bring her comrade into her team, and the reason she had returned to the capital was precisely because of that. With that said, the girl extended her hand and invited Alec to join them in conquering dungeons together. The boy lowered his head, remembering that he had been expelled from his last group for being useless. Yorha laughed and made it clear she didn't care. In fact, she said she didn't need anyone else besides Alec Ygritte, unless, of course, he decided to try going back to the court. Hearing those words, the young man was moved and shook his friend's hand. Then she announced that together they would begin an endless journey in the rank group eternal period. The next day, Alec dreamed of the day when Eldaz had advised him not to become a court mage. A bump on the road made him wake up with the carriage shake, where he was traveling beside his new teammate. In any case, there was still a long way to go before reaching Fizzle, so Yorha told her friend that he could sleep a little longer. Meanwhile, Prince Regulus found out that Ygritte had left the kingdom. Lenny said that the mage had been gone for about 5 days already, and according to rumors, he had probably become an adventurer. Regulus thought that was a joke. He used to think that Kid was a genius, since everyone treated him as a prodigy at the Magic Academy, but in the end, he was nothing more than a coward for fleeing the capital. Lenny celebrated, saying that now they wouldn't have to carry that useless guy on their backs anymore, and instead of a commoner, they would now have Lord Vogan, a talented noble from Duke Fornius's house. In the near future, they would conquer the dungeon in the blink of an eye, and Prince Regulus's fame would spread across the 4 corners of the world. Hours later, northwest of the kingdom of Galdana, Alec and Yorha arrived at Fizzle, the city of dungeons, where Eternal Period had established its base. At the moment, they were clearing a dungeon to the west. But before that, Alec needed to register at the Adventurers Guild, and Yorha could hardly wait to start the adventure with her great friend. However, another piece of bad news fell upon the poor boy, because right away, the guild receptionist informed him that Alec Ygritte was not qualified to register, since he didn't have a pass to enter the city, a license required to explore areas above level 30, and only adventurers registered for at least 2 years could obtain this authorization. Yorha argued that Kraja had said she would take care of that, and the clerk confirmed that Kraja had indeed come to the guild. But let's just say she hadn't been very polite when making her request. Leaving the guild without being able to register her friend, Yorha blamed herself for having left that matter in Kraja's hands. Then she took a bite of the sandwich she had bought to clear her head. Anyway, she commented that the group had reached level 52 in a dungeon now, and they couldn't wait 2 years to continue the expedition. Having said that, she swallowed the sandwich and decided to stop complaining, focusing instead on thinking about other places they could explore. After all, they were in the city of dungeons, and they could find a weaker place to warm up. The girl stood up and welcomed her comrade to Fizzle, hoping he could enjoy the city. As night approached, the two went into a forest infested with flying insects. Yorha activated an enhancement spell that increased her companion's speed and strength. With that, Alec managed to quickly charge at the enemies and take them down one by one. However, a real swarm began to appear, worrying the adventurers. Alec interpreted that the insects were in a state of panic and that something must have happened to their nest, while Yorha activated a magic shield and moved away from her companion to face the enemies alone. After being expelled from the court and spending some time without practicing magic, the truth was that Alec was mentally worn out, which made it difficult for him to use magic, and that was why he had been fighting the insects hand to hand earlier. However, seeing that Yorha was in danger, who was a specialist only in defensive spells, he managed to focus enough to cast a powerful fire spell that eliminated several flying insects. After regaining confidence, he started a physical fight against the remaining opponents. But the swarm kept growing, giving the impression that it was a lost battle. Even so, the two adventurers already had great chemistry from previous missions, showing the strong bond they shared through teamwork. Soon, while the woman cast a magical shield to protect her partner, the man unleashed a powerful rain of lightning that devastated the swarm. Despite that, another threat appears right after. A gigantic earthworm that grabs Yorha's scepter with its mouth and carries it high into the air. Because of that, instead of falling into despair, Alec remembers that his partner is the best support mage in the academy. The girl replies that her comrade is the best attack sorcerer. And with both agreeing that the only drunk one around is the worm, Alec Egret summons the fire tornado, a huge blaze that quickly engulfs the monster's body. Yorha protects herself with her shield so she doesn't turn into barbecue, while the attack mage pulverizes the earthworm with his firepower. With their victory, the two companions praise each other's performance, and Yorha comments that her friend is still the same as always. In the next scene, we see a dungeon where an adventurer tries to drive his spear into the enemy monster. But the creature's shell is too tough. Because of that, when the Hydra strikes to devour the Lancer, his teammate shoots an arrow and prevents it from happening. But even so, the guy still has the nerve to complain. Then, the monster fires a fireball, so Yorha raises a wall of ice to cancel the attack. Next, the Hydra launches an electric sphere, and the defensive mage responds with a wall of earth to block it. The attacks were coming too frequently and quickly weakening the sorceress, until Alec appears and casts an extremely powerful spell that devastates the Hydra in the blink of an eye. With that victory, the archer points out that they've cleared the 68th floor, which means they've broken the dungeon's record. To celebrate, the quartet unites and shouts the name of their group Eternal Period, whose mission is to write their eternal story. Check out these videos appearing on your screen and subscribe so you don't miss the next part.